And thanks for joining us here on PM Express. There is the economic rebound, and everybody's talking about the economy because of the CD's miraculous performance. But you need to have a conversation about the pocket analysis. Really, think about it. This economic rebound, this CD appreciation means absolutely nothing if you don't feel it in your pocket. So let's spend some time tonight unpacking that for you. Is it really hitting your pocket? Are you feeling it? And that is why tonight we're going to be assembling those who are on the other end of the economy, who are supposed to ensure that this economic rebound translates into better pocket experience for you, wherever you are. Okay, let's look at the fundamentals. A few reasons why we're having this conversation tonight. And I want to summarize before I talk about whether or not we're beginning to see the impact in terms of the pocket experience, and whether that pocket experience, even if it's there, we can expect for it to last, or it's temporal, or this is all a fluke. But watch this. The US dollar as against the CD is giving the US dollar a massive beating. As of today, the CD has appreciated by 28% against the dollar. This is jaw-dropping indeed. We are now talking about 10 CD, 4 pesos to the dollar. That's amazing. Just a month ago, we were almost at 16. To think that it's dropped all the way to 10 as of today is nothing short of a miracle. That is the dollar. Pound, as of today, the CD has appreciated by 22%. Euros by 21%. Against all the major trading currencies, the CD is performing wonders, right? Now let's look at what the graphs tell us. The graphs tell us a very interesting story because you're going to compare 2 points in time. Let's take now. So as I said here, you see here 10.4. That is 10 CDs, 4 pesos to the dollar. And this is the biggest appreciation of the CD since 2023. That 2023 experience had the CD appreciating all the way to 9.8 CDs, 9 CDs, 8 pesos, 80 pesos to the dollar, right? That was in 2023 at the time. Fascinating indeed. So if you look at the time, now we are talking about 10 CDs at 40 pesos. That tells you a story of that span of time. The question everybody asks is, can you maintain this, right? That is a fundamental question, but it's relevant if you want to have the pocket analysis question. And then you look at the pound. The pound, the CD is now trading at 4 CDs, 10 pesos to the dollar. The last time we were anything close to that, we're talking about September 2023, right? And so that tells you a story of what is happening right now. And then you come to your euros. Currently, we're talking about 11 CDs, 80 pesos. It was 11 CDs, 60 pesos in 2023. So 2023 seemed to be the last time we saw this magic play out, right? And then you begin to also look at the other factors that are now coming to play very strongly. If you look at 2025 in terms of gold exports, we're now talking about some $5.2 billion worth of gold exports. In 2024, the whole year, we did 2.9 billion gold exports. So this is a significant factor. This red bar here is a significant factor. So the economy is rebounding. A lot of things are happening in many places for us to have this. And you stay with cocoa. Just in the last quarter alone, just last quarter, we've exported, in the last 4 months, we've just exported $1.84 billion worth of cocoa. Now, compare that to the entire 12 months of last year. We did 1.9 billion. So pause for a second and think about that. What we've just done in 4 months compared to what we did the whole of last year. This is significant. That is also part of the reason why we're seeing the CD perform the way it's performing. But this, for me, is the most fascinating one indeed. At the time when Dr. Keslato Forsing, a.k.a. Atonomics, was reading the budget, in March, he told us that our import cover was just around 3 months. In less than 2 months, it's shot up to 4.7 months of import cover, 10.6 billion. They've added almost $2 billion to this, to our international reserves. And that is a great buffer indeed. All because of what I've just explained to you with the gold, but also with the cocoa, right? So that's another reason why this is happening. Shortly, we'll ask the question, and so what, very short. But that's what I want to get to, just to appreciate what the realities are today, just updating you on things that you may know already. And then you look at the first quarter, when it comes to remittances. The BOG governor makes a point. Another reason why this is happening is remittance. Because the Bank of Ghana now has closed all the loops where the fintechs were in the past giving out the CD equivalent to people, holding the dollars. The dollars were not coming directly into the economy. The BOG has plugged that loophole. So when your brother, your sister, your son now transfers dollars from the US, it comes straight to the BOG, it comes straight into the economy. And that is what we are measuring now at 1.8 billion. That loophole has been closed, right? So this is coming in and shoring up the city compared to what used to be in the past. So that's another good reason why this is happening. But then you add to the tight monetary fiscal policy. The BOG is still very controlling as far as the monetary policy is concerned. Inflation targeting is there. Fiscal stance is strong because spending is constrained. IMF Ghana staff level agreement, the weakening of the dollar globally, which I maintain is a minor reason why this is happening. You have the MPP's own explanations why this is happening. According to them, left behind strong gold and FX reserve. That is true. They started a policy to just accumulate gold at the BOG. NDC has added less than 1 ton to the gold that we have, the gold reserves that we have. We'll try and fact check that pretty shortly, but I made the point. And BOG aggressively is injecting dollars into the economy. Yes, they have, but to pay for energy bills, according to the BOG itself. BOG must cut policy rate is what the MPP is calling for. But let's focus on this for a second. But I made that point last week, that the NDC government, they've not added 1 ton of gold to the reserves that we have. If you fact check that, you would see that he's right. We haven't added 1 ton just yet, because if you add all that in January, February, March, April, it doesn't add up to 1 ton just yet, right? But we're exporting quite significant amounts of gold. So we're talking about reserves. It's different from what you're exporting, right? But the moment was talking about reserves. So that he's right on that particular question. And then you look at fuel. And this is really where the rubber hits the road. This is where it begins to impact your pocket. You hear the coins in my pocket. This is where it begins to impact. Because when fuel prices go down, then the masses begin to feel it. If the masses don't feel it, forget about all these numbers. I'm going to the billions and billions. And it doesn't matter if the young man who is hungry, who wants to buy kinky, cannot afford the kinky, is still buying the kinky at the same old price, and the kinky has shrunk, so inflation has happened to it. It doesn't matter. But once it touches fuel, it has to pass on. But it will pass on when transport fares begin to go down. And we see the graph here, very interesting graph. Look at the downward trend when it comes to fuel. This is oil, by the way. Downward trend. All the way down, it's crashing. The price of fuel is crashing all the way to now 13 cedis, 27 pesos. So it's crashing. It's good, right? Because you look at diesel, also downwards trend. And then you go to inflation, also inching downwards at 21. So that again is a good sign. You begin to ask the question, on so what? Does it affect my pocket? Then rising consumer confidence. Now, this measures from the Bank of Ghana the confidence that consumers now have in the economy on the back of everything that is happening. And it's showing that currently we are at a 5-year high in terms of your confidence in the economy, your confidence in the ability of the economy to now meet your needs. 103.6 is where we are currently. That tells you a story, because the last time we were close to this was in 2020, right? That's a 5-year period, 5-year high. So confidence is very, very high in the economy, even among consumers, right? But yeah, you may be confident, but are you beginning to feel it in your pocket just yet? And for me, this picture here should tell the story. So what do we know has been happening over the last few days? A few things have been happening. There's this clamor for prices to just collapse, price of everything to be reduced, clamor across the board. But there's a reason why this is the case. The cedi is appreciating rapidly, as I illustrated at the beginning. When that happens, first thing now you notice that imports become cheap. This is an import-driven economy. We are not a manufacturing economy. We are not export-oriented. We are import-oriented. So you will notice that a lot of the inflation that we suffer in this country is imported inflation. When imports become cheap, few things will happen. Two things I'm isolating because that has greater impact. First is fuel. Fuel prices becomes cheaper because we import fuel a lot, the finished product. Second, goods, right? Guta is selling wheat for your bread. You're importing it from Ukraine and elsewhere. That becomes cheaper. When that happens, lower fuel, lower prices, right? If the fuel is low in terms of the cost of fuel that you're buying at the pump, it's supposed to lead to cheaper food prices. Why will that happen? Because you have transport fares now begin to now reflect the cheaper fuel. So when GPRTU announced and directed their members to reduce transport fares by 15%, that is where we begin to ask the question, the pocket is beginning to hit the pocket. But you've seen that the implementation is slow. This is what economists would call price stickiness. Price reduction that doesn't go down as quickly compared to when it has to increase. It's just what economists will tell you. That's what the literature says. So don't expect this to go down that quickly, but it's going down somewhat. So GPRT says prices should go down. So once prices go down, something very interesting will happen. That is where the masses begin to feel the impact of this. Why? Because imagine that vehicle that will now have to cart the maize from the farm to Agbogloshi market. That vehicle will need fuel to transport the maize down to Accra. Because fuel is now cheap, it's going to cost that market woman who deals in, getting the maize from the farm straight to the market, it's going to cost her less to transport that. So she's not going to pass on that benefit to the person who's going to come and buy the maize to go and prepare kinky. It's costing that kinky maker, right, less now to buy the maize. What tends to happen is she will now also have to reduce the price of the kinky. At least that's what you expect. It doesn't necessarily happen because of price stickiness. And that's why we need to have this conversation tonight on PM Express. So once transport fares have gone down, you naturally begin to expect the prices of goods on the market, staples, must go down also. Both imported and those that we produce locally, because those are imported is going to become cheaper too. So that is where you begin to feel it in your pocket. And then you have lower electricity tariffs, because again, the question about forex is a huge part of what the PRLC is going to be using to calculate the next quarterly adjustment. So again, if all things being equal and this continues, this should go down. Then you have declining inflation and the impact there. If the food prices are low, you begin to see inflation also dwindling. So you expect inflation to go down even further. So this has a knock-on effect from everything. Your pocket is at play here. But at the big level, consumption is supposed to go up, because when prices go up, you can buy more kinky. If the kinky now reduces the price, you can buy more of that. But I'd like to talk also about this. Even our debt servicing becomes cheaper, right? Especially our external debt, because it's in dollars. So what we'd have done is we'd have gone to, because we spend CDs here, so the government will take the small CDs we have, plenty CDs, and then go and use it to pay the dollar. And if the dollar was at 15, you pay a lot more. But now that it's dropped to 10.4, it's costing us less now to service that debt. So that is huge. So your debt to GDP ratio is going to fall as a result of that. That is huge benefit indeed. Reduce fiscal pressure is that. So regardless of how you look at this is astonishing. But most importantly, many tell us that if you don't watch this very closely, by the end of the week, the dollar will probably be in the 9 CD to the CD will be 9 CD to the dollar by the end of the week. And all these dynamics will even play even more favorably. Okay, let's sit and have the conversation. So are we seeing the market women, the commercial drivers, the businessmen and women, are they ready to reduce prices to reflect this? Are they ready? That is the conversation we are having tonight. Because if transfer prices have gone down, I don't see why my kinky should be selling at the same price as I bought it a week ago. The market women will join us and tell us why they are still selling kinky at the same price. And then we'll talk about the drivers too, and the businesses who are there, and then the economists who come in the between that. So we can leave here feeling, maybe if my pocket, and tonight there's a very fascinating story the GPR2 had told me on my other show on radio, that if you board a public transport and the driver doesn't charge the lower fare, the reduced fares, catch him, arrest him, and send him to the police officer nearby. That's what they say. We'll get them to respond to that tonight here on PMSS. And thanks for staying with us here on PMS. It's always brought to you by Syntax Science. It is strong, it is tough. Academic Times newspaper, and Pepsodent Cavity Fighter toothpaste. So my guest joining me for a conversation tonight is Dr. Sharif Mahmood Khalid. He's an economic advisor to the Vice President. Also joining me is Isaac Boama Nyako. He is a member of the Finance Committee in Parliament. We'll be joined by Dr. Tio Champon, an economist, to look at what's happening. We are focusing tonight on the pocket analysis. I mean, we know what's happening, but if it doesn't reflect in your pocket, it's absolutely pointless. And that's where the tensions are beginning to emerge tonight. With GPLTs are asking their members to reduce the fares by 50%. Some of their members are not complying, and commuters are now in a tussle with them, because that is really the point where, as I explained at the beginning, you begin to feel this in your pocket. Because once the fares go down, it affects the prices of food, because, as you know, market women transporting to Accra will now have it cheaper, and you expect that that will have a knock-on effect. But whether that happens or not is a subject of economic debate. And the analysis and the research says that you don't expect the prices to go down as quickly as all the other factors that we're currently seeing. So what can government do? And we can also speak to Dr. Rivers Enopong. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Marketing of Oil Marketing Companies. As you know, they are so instrumental in this whole translation of the economic gains now to your pocket. Samuel Amo is the Deputy Spokesperson of the GPR2U, and he joins us on Zoom. And we're hoping to be speaking to the market queen, Messina Frowa Nijan. She's the president of the Greater Accra Markets Association, and they are really at the heart of this too. So very interesting conversation in the next few minutes, just to delve to the heart of this. I want to quickly come to Dr. Rivers Enopong, because it all starts with them. Doc, if you don't mind, just explaining to me, as of tonight, if you compare to, say, last month, what percentage of reduction have we seen in fuel prices at the pumps generally?
For inviting me to this great dialogue and conversation. We have seen a huge reduction in fuel prices, and with all pride can say that the members of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies have all adhered to the changes that we all foresee. It's not just the past 1 month that we've realized this nosedive in pricing. I think for the past 6 pricing windows, and when you say the pricing windows, we are referring to the 2 weeks window that is being reported by MPA. So that's the 1st to 15th, the first window of the month, and then 16th to 30th, 31st of the month, we have the second window. And like you said in your analysis, all boils down to 2 factors. And apparently, I believe that Ghana is very lucky, unlike other countries, to have had 2 major, I would say, characteristics on the pump price build-up, going to our advantage, because we found that the Brent price or WTI prices globally is going down. And anytime you have this kind of scenario, 2 things are involved. As we are happy with the downstream effect, that the fuel price going down at the pump level, you also see that there is revenue reduction in the upstream, but then that's not a topic for today. But as far as the CD is also a very big factor in the forex calculation because you're converting the landing prices for you from USD to CD. We also have that affecting the pump price. As a matter of fact, we've seen about an average of 6 to 10% decrease. Coming from the 15th to the 13th. And believe me, in the next window, we are even foreseeing going to 12. The forecast will be ready by Thursday.
12 cities.
It's just no, I didn't say 4 cities.
12 cities.
12.
12 cities.
Yeah, 12. Yeah.
12
yes.
cities. So you're expecting that petrol will be selling at 12.
Yeah, if the city continues to react as it does, believe me, like I mentioned, with the plateauing down of the international benchmark prices, we are likely to see that, and we shall be proud to have that effect on our consumers in Ghana.
In all the indicators from everything else that I've explained, there's nothing that says that this trend will continue. In fact, everything points to, because this, even today, is dropped from closer to 11. It came to the middle of 10, and it's dropped now below 10.5. And there's every sense that by the end of the week, you all likely will probably go into the 9.
Yeah, like that's why I said that by Thursday, you should receive our usual report, which we share with Joy. So we're glad to let you know where we're heading towards to in terms of the forecast price.
That's fascinating indeed, and that obviously relates directly to the subject of fares. And the GPLTU man is with me on this. He joins us on the phone, and they really are at the point of reflecting this in your pockets, and they've asked for a 15% reduction in fares. And Samuel, he joins me on the phone now. Samuel, you announced this. It was supposed to take effect on Saturday. We've seen today that there's a lot of tension between commuters and drivers. Drivers are not complying. In fact, tonight I heard from the Road Transport Coordinating Council that they have like 50% compliance there. What's happening? This is a very simple reduction. Considering the windfall you're enjoying, the reduction in fuel, and you see the OMC say it's possibly now go to the next window on Thursday, you can expect it to drop to 12 cedis. Why are you not enforcing your own price reduction across the board?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say thank you for having me, and also say good evening to you and then your viewers. Yes, it's true. We have come out with this 15% reduction that was supposed to, take effect from last Saturday, the 24th of May. And then from our section or from our quarters, normally what we'll do is, after coming up with this agreement, we send circular to all our 16 regional officers. Then we'll make sure that they also descend down to the branch officers as well as the local officers, then down to the drivers. So that is exactly what we did. And then we also did a little bit monitoring to check that all the drivers will also comply. Yes, GPRT is monitoring seriously. And then since Saturday afternoon to the evening, we had an information that some of our, union members are not complying. So we did a follow-up up till the evening. Then we got the understanding that some of them, the officers couldn't, print out the approved fares for the drivers to also, comply with. So some of them, agreed to begin it this Monday morning, of which we also did a follow-up, and we found out that most of them, have complied. But then the little challenge we are having right now is coming from, those drivers that don't belong to any of the unions. It's quite difficult to control them as I'm speaking now. So basically, the calls that we receive, the complaints that we receive from the most of the passengers and even most of your media, personnel, shows us that those that are not complying, the majority is coming from the floating drivers. That is why yesterday we came out with a joint release that the police should also assist us. So, all the drivers will comply.
Yeah, and that is where we are now, having police to enforce this, because really, as I said,
Yes.
if you don't have the transport fares reflect, that benefit will not be passed on to the majority of Ghanaians. And then let me bring Dr. Khalid in. Doc, this is where this all becomes important. In fact, you can argue that the city's appreciation, all the economic, indicators that are all, are pointing in the right direction will be meaningless if this is not passed on to the ordinary Ghanaian. What is government doing? Yes, so you're doing a lot policy-wise to get the indicators pointing in the right direction. But what is government doing to now translate that into real pocket experience for ordinary Ghanaians? As we've seen, drivers are struggling now to enforce their own reduction. And if they don't do it, this becomes pointless.
Yeah, good evening, Evans, and good evening to your cherished listeners out there. I think what government is meant to do is what it's practically doing. I mean, never in the history of this country would you have the central bank, that's the regulator of monetary policy, the controller of inflation, among other monetary variables, the Minister of Finance, who is the head of the Treasury, and the executive arm of government singing from the same hymn book in actually trying to stabilize currency and get the economy well running. And this is to have this synchronization in and of itself is effective communication that something concurrent is happening as far as stabilizing the economy. This is done not just in a vacuum. It is done with real market variables of demand and supply. If it was artificial, where probably we're printing money or using other artificial means to stabilize the economy, that is where you will have a problem with what translates into the pocket of the people or the economy. But as of now, the demand and supply of the market in and of itself will take care of it, and people are going to begin to feel it. And that's where your analogy of price stickiness may not really happen, because invariably also known as nominal rigidity, because this is happening naturally. Demand and supply is taking place. It's not done in an artificial form. If it were to be done in an artificial form, yes, you would have that happening slowly. To even see transport unions such as GPRTU coming into the wave to whip their drivers in line tells you the kind of confidence this approach is. What happens here is that there's a level of market surveillance that would happen as far as a market intelligence gathering. You would see that even ratings agencies are beginning to come in and make an outlook of where the city is headed for. So all of these projections feed in to the real confidence of the market and not the artificial zigzag approach you may be having.
And I showed the graph earlier about the consumer confidence, and it's an all-time high, 5-year high. But you made a point about the demand and supply will fix this, but not exactly, is it? Because if you look at transport fare, for example, if you really do not have a choice, if you like, you're standing by the roadside and you have to pick a trotro to your destination, and then you sit in the car and the guy says, well, I'm unfortunately, I can't charge what my GPRTU is asking me to charge. You really don't have a choice there. I mean, demand and supply will work if you have a choice between choosing.
Evans, in an economy where you don't have a strong consumer protection regime, you may have this for a short while. But as the GPRT indicated, you have 50% compliance, and those not compliant are outside the union. What happens? 50% is such a high mark. With a gradual process of most of them whipping themselves in line, you would realize that most drivers will begin to shy away from this because they know that the rest of the market is responding to it. And that's where you still have a natural demand and supply flow triggering that. Okay.
I mean, Mr. Nyako, so from the Finance Committee's point of view, this is really good for no matter how you look at it. But let's stress the point about the impact, which is really what we're talking about here. What we're experiencing right now, and you are an MP, so you go to your constituency. I'm sure this weekend you're in a constituency.
Yes.
And I want to probably start there. What are your constituents telling you about how they're feeling about this in your pockets, by the confidence they have that this is something that can be sustained over a period of time?
Thank you very much, Evans, and a very good evening to your cherished viewers and listeners, and a good evening to the good people of Efia constituency, where I represent in the Western region. Exciting, and we are all excited with what is going on in this country, particularly the performance of the cedi against the dollar. And most important for today's discussion is how we're feeling it in our pocket. And coming from Takoradi over the weekend, I've been in the constituency. I flew into Accra this morning, and airfares have not gone down. It's actually still very high from Takoradi to Accra and back.
Because once you're flying in an aeroplane, maybe you are an outlier. This is not for you.
No, I'm just bringing it from, because they all use aviation fuel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly, and all the prices are going down. So you expect also
it should reflect there too.
It should reflect there too. And then when you take exactly the transportation as GPRTU had announced, we've not started feeling it in the Western region or in Takoradi. I'm sure, as he said, the circular has been sent across the regions, and you don't get all the compliance coming up at the very beginning. But we need to also ensure as a country that when we send these directives, the responses come immediate. Because you realize that when prices go high, and then market begins to respond by increasing prices, the speed with which it happens is not the same way as if you see these improvements happening in the economy. But that comes back to the confidence of the people. And as your projections indicate, the country is at an all-time high in terms of confidence in the economy. And so we need to speak confidently to the economy so that people can be assured that this is not just a 9-day wonder. It's something that we can project into the next months and years. And in so doing, pricing, which is a factor of various stakeholders, including either the business community and even the consumers that go in there, we would all be able to picture and say that why not? The fact that you're making benefit out of this windfall, you should be able to give part to the consumer who had been buying at a very higher price over time. And so...
you think there's a role for government here?
Very, very big role for government, of course.
That makes the point that the economic advisor makes the point, the government role is what government has done already.
No, government...
Policy interventions that has led to the appreciation of the cedi. Inflation is going down. That is what government is supposed to do.
No, I don't
The rest, demand and supply will fix it.
No. I don't think government has done enough. You see, government is the major runner, the front runner when it comes to these policies and beyond implementation. You have the Minister for Trade, right? The Minister for Trade has her own engagements that she has to do with the various companies who are importing, the importers. And so it's not enough to say that government have brought the dollar down or the cedi down, and so we should allow open market to dictate the pace. There is some form of government contribution, government effort, government discussion. Today I listened to the president, when he met the CEOs, and he made mention to the CEOs that he has seen GPRTU come up with a directive for a reduction in transport, and he expects the business community, the CEOs, to also respond same. That is the signal you want to hear. And so I think that was a good part for the president to use the opportunity in addressing the CEOs to draw their attention that they should let Ghanaians benefit.
But that's what he said. He asked them to ensure that they...
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that's commendable. What the president did is very commendable. And I'm saying that when the president does that, it is the sector ministers who are supposed to also follow through and make sure that there is backdoor engagement with these companies and try to find out exactly what are their challenges in not responding adequately to this kind of windfall. And once those engagements go, you can see the speed of the benefit. But if you leave it for the market and for businessmen today, there's always an excuse why they can wait for 3 months or 6 months before we begin to feel it. But we want Ghanaians to feel it now.
I mean, Dr. Khalid, if you listen to the GPRTU, they are begging for government help in enforcing the price reduction, the fare reduction. I heard the spokesperson for Abasimori. In fact, our good friend also made a point about they're looking for the police to also step in. Isn't there a role there for government there? In fact, the GPLTU made the point to me on the radio that they are surprised that the transport minister hasn't said a word about this since they announced the reduction.
I mean, that role, we wouldn't call it role in and of itself, but we may say, because we're not going to force them to do A, B, C, D, but it's more of a stakeholder engagement approach. You say, okay, well, this is where we've taken it to. But the real communication is all in the same hymn book that the president, the finance minister, and the central bank governor is singing from, by giving confidence into the economy. When you have confidence in the economy, you can see a projected outlook that this is where it's going to be in terms of performance. Nobody needs to tell you. So it's more of an attitudinal problem now, which ought to be stakeholder engagement. I heard a couple member of parliament say backdoor engagement. Obviously, it's not front door. If it was front door, that's where you say, okay, this is what government is mandated to do. But backdoor engagements are usually appeals. So we can only appeal, we can only engage, but all we need to do is to continue the restoration and maintenance and stability of the confidence that we've injected into the economy. Mind you also, as you keep this confidence going, right, it tends to affect interest rates, it tends to affect inflation, then invariably the market in and of itself naturally folds back into responding to these prices positively. And again, that's something we ought to be looking at positively as we move on. You could see rating agencies internationally plowing back into the market to put us on a very positive outlook trajectory. And that's what the market wants and ought to respond to. But yes, I do agree to an extent that, yes, we need to have these engagements. Guta, among others, all need to be engaged. But can we also be responsible citizens enough to say, this is where we've gotten to? I mean, to come to a stage of police enforcement in and of itself is not palatable for nation building as far as transport.
I mean, Dr. Rivers, in talking about confidence, you are a businessman and your members are they're engaged in businesses, although, of course, you're an important part of the fuel chain. Give me your own the confidence that you currently have in the economy. How would you describe it? I mean, for a business like yours, who operating in an economy like this, you probably have seen it all. Where would you rank what is happening, and how confident are yourself and your members?
Yeah, so I mean, you are right on point to say that we are businessmen, and I quite remember when the fuel prices were going up, and Joy interviewed me asking me why we are increasing our prices so fast and all that. We run a business that we pass through the costs of everything to consumers. Okay, and that's the reason why when fuel price go down, we at the chamber, even though it's not our business, also expect the transport fares, and not only the GPLTU, we expect Uber and Bolt to also react immediately when this happens, so that we kind of have the confidence that the value we are bringing into the market is actually impacting the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian. That being said, the price of fuel that is imported, plus the levies and then all the taxes that warrants us as marketing companies to add to the pump price are added, and our margins are obviously going to be also added to the pump price. So actually realize that we are just passing on the cost in the chain or in the value chain to the ordinary Ghanaian. So when fuel price go up or it goes down, what will happen in the oil marketing business is that we react positively or negatively towards whatever regime that we are working with. And it's up to the end user, you and I, to actually bear the cost. It doesn't really affect the the rate at which I would say a lot of people would work, because whether fuel price is up or down, people still need to commute to work. So we are excited, no doubt about it, that we do have the ordinary Ghanaian benefiting from a business that we do play a role in.
Now, as a businessman, when you hear Dr. Khalid talks about confidence, is that a word that you will use now?
Generally, I'll say yes, because we are Ghanaians and you and I buy fuel. But you, like I said, you'd realize that the consumption of fuel has gone up, and I would not really say that the fuel consumption rate is going up because of the demand is going up due to the reduction in fuel price. Fuel consumption in Ghana goes up every year, and our quarterly review shows that the demand is even going up even more than what we expected or had forecasted for this year, to be fair. This shows that activities in the regions, or in the country, are going up. People are actually buying fuel. The confidence would be in the end user more than the business players as the oil marketing companies, just to be on a fair play. Because we as oil marketing companies, unlike an IOTCs or that's international oil trading companies, would actually pass on every cost that we bear onto the ordinary Ghanaian. So we have confidence that the business is sustainable because we have the parameters that are working for us.
Okay, so you are confident that it's sustainable. Samuel Lamwa, at the GPLTU, yes, it's gone down by 15%, and you're waiting to get help to enforce it across the country. But you also must have your own projections. Is this 15% one that you believe you can keep it at 15% lower over a longer period of time, considering what the OMCs are telling us, that you can also expect a further reduction in fuel prices to around 12 by, say, end of week? Is it fair to suggest that GPLTU may have to consider very soon further reduction in fares?
Okay, so, fuel price is not the only component that we look at when it comes to, reviewing of our transport fares. We also do consider the spare parts. We consider the lubricant and that of the taxes. As I'm speaking now, the spare parts have not even, come out with the reduction, as well as, the lubricant. Engine oil that we were buying it for, 250 Ghana cedis a gallon is still the 250 cedis. They have not reduced it. Some of them are giving an excuse that, they haven't old stock, and it's like they have to sell out, those stocks that they have before they can bring in another one before reduction will come and all that. And then when we had a meeting with the minister, we also put this across that supposing we use only the fuel reduction, we wouldn't have even come up with this 15%, reduction that we have come up with. But the assurance that the ministry gave us was that we have spoken with the other sellers, that is the spare parts dealers and the lubricant, and that their promise is that very soon they are also going to reduce it. That is why we had that agreement, and we come up with this.
So you raised a very important point. So this reduction is predicated on an expectation that the spare parts dealers will also reduce their prices.
Perfect. Because let me explain this. You see, I earlier mentioned that there are other components that we look at. The fuel component at our meeting, we got the understanding that the fuel has been reduced by 18%. And normally, when we go for negotiations, the component, like the way fuel has been reduced by 18%, we divide it by 3, then they will give us 1. Like that is the same way if we are going in for increment. That is how we do it. And then also, they also look at that of the spare parts, the percentages that has come up or has come down. Then we also divide it by 3, then that of the lubricant and the taxes. But here is the case, we find out that lubricants are still the same, spare parts are still the same, insurance is charging the same, DVLA and assembly taxes are still the same. So if we were to look at exactly, or were to look only into the fuel product, then it means that this very reduction has to come down to about 6%. But based on the assurance that they gave us, and we also noticed that most of the time when transport fare goes up, all the market women, all the commodities, they also came out that, because transport fares are up, that is why we have also increased our stuff and all that. That is why GPRTU sat down, then we took the step that let us come up with this increment, reduction, so that all the other, all the other market women, those that are selling the spare parts and the market women and all that, they will also, reduce it, so that we will have the fuel in the ordinary Ghanaian's pocket. So it's not like maybe if the fuel price has to come down again, as my other brother was saying, we should look ahead for the transport fares to even come down.
Okay.
Again,
I mean, so bottom line, you haven't seen the spare parts prices reduced just yet. No. Okay.
Come again.
The spare parts prices, they haven't reduced just yet.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, and that's a very important point, because that spare parts is so very important. We import it, so it should cost cheaper. But let me ask you about the bigger question about, we have an economic windfall now. Everything is going for us. But are we preparing for the rainy day? I mean, government is happy. Everybody's talking about price reduction. But I recall in 2017, 2018, 2019, there was a good vibe around the economy around that time as well, until COVID hit, and we realized that we were naked all along. What's your take on that? I mean, the lessons from there, applying it to what is happening now, and preparing for the future and eventualities.
Yeah, and that is the work we're going back to Parliament to do, and to ask questions tomorrow, to ask the Minister of Finance to give us information as to government strategy and plan to consolidate this gain, and also ensure that we build the buffers that will be able to stand the days of adversity. You see, I always say as a country that we are quick to take praises when these things are happening, but we are unable to plan well and unable to put in the necessary mechanisms which are more sustainable. Like you indicated, from the period that COVID hit this country, we realize that our fundamentals are weak. We're coming into an economy where, as at the end of December, our gold reserve stood at 30 tons. And then you come 5 months down the line, we're selling almost about 20 tons of gold. And yet our add-on to our gold reserve is just less than one ton. And so you ask yourself, if you go by this trajectory, by the end of the year, how much reserve would you have built into your system? And we are not going to get this gold price going on like this forever. We are not going to get cocoa price rise like this forever. So what is the government strategy? If the government intends to use this windfall to at least bring the dollar down in the city, in so doing, we should still make sure that we are building reserves. US is having over 8,000 pounds of tons. UK is having over 2,000 tons. And we are just being able to reach 30. And as at now, we've not added 5, we've not added 10. And these are the things that are going to cushion our currency. So I think that the economic path, and my friend from the Office of Thanks for the Finance Minister and the Vice President Economic Management Team, to assure us as a country the kind of arrangements they are putting in place to make sure that all of these things we see.
I mean, thank you very much. And Parliament resumes tomorrow, so we'll get to hear a bit more of this. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time here, but I know this is a conversation that we'll have to return to as we monitor the prices over the next few days. Enjoy the rest of your evening.